For 9 months, my mother-in-law, Harper, unfavorably compared my pregnancy to my sister-in-law's seemingly flawless experience. After my sister-in-law had her child, both she and my husband decided to cut ties with Harper. My husband and I have been happily married for over 4 years and together for 7. He truly is the ideal partner, embodying the man of my dreams, and we share a wonderful life together. Everyone in my large Mexican family adores him, and not a single person has expressed dislike toward him. His polite and respectful demeanor won everyone over from the start, solidifying my love for him. We make a great team, and conflicts are rare, except when it involves his mother, who can be quite difficult. My husband's family is much smaller than mine. Other than his parents, he has a sister who married last year. His parents are conservative, small-town Christians. His mother, especially, is overly protective and controlling, insisting on family gatherings during holidays and creating drama if her wishes are not met. When I first met his family, I bonded easily with his father, who is laid back and quiet. His sister, who had been away at college and returned only 4 years ago, has also become very close to me, treating me like her own sister. However, interacting with his mother was challenging. For instance, when I shared that I am an environmental consultant focused on marine conservation, my father-in-law was impressed and supportive, but Harper only frowned and remained silent. Later, I learned from my father-in-law that Harper had pressured my husband to end our relationship. She disapproved of me because I pursued a career I am passionate about, wrongly thinking it made me unsuitable for her son. Harper's outdated expectations included wanting her son to marry someone who would solely be a housewife, disregarding my professional aspirations and the joy my work brings me. Fortunately, my husband has always supported my career, and our shared values have strengthened our bond, contrary to his mother's narrow views. My husband decisively informed his father, William, that his choice of spouse was not up for discussion by his mother. I was relieved and reassured when he defended our relationship, which solidified my decision to stay with him, even after learning about his mother's disapproval. However, as our relationship progressed, Harper's attitude towards me only deteriorated. She would often make underhanded remarks about how a good wife should prioritize homemaking and await her husband's return from work. Harper didn't hesitate to point out that I didn't fit her image of a traditional wife, critiquing my appearance and questioning my ability to bear children. Initially, I dismissed her comments as possibly sarcastic, but it became clear she was quite serious. One evening, during a dinner she insisted we attend, Harper launched into a tirade about longing for old-fashioned gender roles, where women solely managed the household and men were the breadwinners. My husband quickly countered, pointing out that those days were over, and he cherished having a partner who contributed equally, both financially and domestically. Harper, visibly upset by this modern perspective, continued to rant about traditional gender roles. Despite William's attempts to diffuse the tension by advising his wife to calm down, Harper grew more agitated, claiming she was just speaking her truth for her son's benefit. After enduring enough, I quietly stood up from the table and asked my husband to take me home, which he did without hesitation. He shared a look of disappointment with his mother as we left. Later, when William called trying to mend things, I firmly told him Harper's interference and outdated views were unacceptable. William apologized on her behalf, but I was not ready to just accept it. My husband supported this stance, warning that without a sincere apology from Harper, he might cut ties permanently. This ultimatum seemed to resonate with her, prompting an apology, which I accepted with the clear expectation that such discussions would not recur. Though Harper apologized, old habits die hard, and it wasn't long before similar issues surfaced again, shortly after my husband and I began living together. After we got married, I had to leave for a research expedition for a few weeks. During this time, Harper called me, questioning who would look after the house and her son while I was away. Confused by her intrusive questions, I put her on speakerphone so my husband, who was driving with me, could also listen. When I asked her to clarify her concerns, she accused me of being immature and insisted that I should give up my expeditions to focus more on supporting her son. My husband quickly intervened, firmly telling her that he was fully capable of taking care of himself and that we were equal partners who equally shared our responsibilities. This response upset her, and she argued that our marriage was doomed if I couldn't learn to be a proper wife. Annoyed, my husband told her to mind her own business and ended the call. During our engagement, Harper was already displeased, especially when she learned that we planned a small wedding due to the high costs associated with my large family and our plans to move into our own place soon. I decided to limit the guest list to close family members, planning a later celebration for the extended family. However, Harper wanted to invite all her friends whom she hadn't seen in a long time, viewing our wedding as the perfect reunion opportunity. When my husband inquired if she intended to cover the costs for her friends, she took offense, claiming that as his parent, it was shameful for him to even suggest such a thing. We stood our ground, stating that the wedding would remain small, and any uninvited guests she brought would be her financial responsibility. Despite her displeasure, she couldn't change our plans. At the wedding, Harper was vocally critical, particularly disliking my choice of wedding gown. I chose to ignore her complaints, focusing on enjoying the day without letting her negativity affect me. My sister-in-law, aware of the tension, did her best to keep Harper away from me throughout the event. Last year in mid-April, we received the wonderful news that I was pregnant, bringing us immense joy amidst these challenges. When the time came for my gender reveal party, Harper was outraged upon learning that she wasn't organizing it. She showed up at our doorstep, furiously accusing me of alienating her from her grandchild and insisting that my husband should assert more control over the situation so she could be more involved in my pregnancy. Her tone and the stress it caused led my husband to sternly ask her to leave, warning that her behavior might lead to her being permanently cut off from our grandchild's life. Despite her tearful protests that she just wanted what was best, she eventually left. The fallout from this episode was significant. William and Olivia reached out, deeply concerned about Harper's behavior. Olivia, particularly shocked by her mother's actions, urged me to rest as much as possible. This incident with Harper at our doorstep was not the end of her overbearing behavior, however. During the holiday season, when my husband informed her that we would not be able to visit for Christmas due to my inability to travel long distances, she became infuriated. She accused him of distancing himself from his family and abruptly hung up when he wouldn't yield to her demands. We thought she had accepted our decision, but to our surprise, a week later, she texted insisting we come to her place. When my husband reminded her of our previous conversation, she called, furiously accusing me of keeping him away from the family and demanded that he control his woman. This pattern of controlling and toxic behavior was becoming increasingly apparent, and I discussed it openly with my husband and Olivia, who both acknowledged her troubling actions and supported me fully. The situation reached a peak when I went into preterm labor at 29 weeks, and our son was born via emergency C-section at 30 weeks. In the rush, we couldn't inform anyone until after the birth. My husband shared the news on our family group chat, receiving a flood of congratulations, but Harper had yet another meltdown. She bombarded us with texts, upset that she hadn't been in the delivery room, despite it being clear that I would have never allowed such a thing. I chose not to respond to her unreasonable demands, hoping to avoid further conflict. While I was occupied with caring for our newborn, Harper contacted my husband, upset about our son's name. She claimed it sounded too Mexican and suggested it be changed or used as a middle name instead. Despite her insistence and disappointment, we didn't heed her demands, but she continued to express her dissatisfaction. When she finally met our son, she began calling him by a completely different name she had concocted, claiming it was her special nickname for him. This took us aback, but my husband promptly asked her to stop, reinforcing that our chosen name was to be used. Harper also disapproved of me breastfeeding, arguing it limited her time with the baby. She suggested I switch to formula feeding so she could have more interactions with him. My mother, who was with us, explained the benefits of breastfeeding for a newborn, but Harper stubbornly maintained that it was unfair. Our constant critiques and attempts to control were wearing on everyone. The situation escalated when Harper insisted on having lunch with me to discuss something she claimed was urgent. After trying to avoid the meeting, I finally agreed. At lunch, after some initial pleasantries, she bluntly asked who would be our son's godfather. Knowing her likely reaction, I hesitated but explained that Olivia and I had decided to be each other's children's godparents. This revelation upset Harper greatly. She burst into tears in the middle of the restaurant and loudly criticized the decision. She argued that as the grandmother, she should have the right to be the godmother, claiming only she could truly be trusted with his care. Despite her emotional display, I stood firm, telling her that the decision was final and she could discuss further with my husband if necessary. I later shared the ordeal with Olivia, who was equally displeased that Harper did not want her involved as the godparent. My husband also struggled to understand why Harper was acting so irrationally, as her behavior continued to strain family relations. Last week, amidst an emotionally charged atmosphere, Olivia gave birth to her daughter. She requested my presence in the delivery room for support, a role I gladly accepted, having experienced childbirth myself. I spent the night by her side, while my husband and mother cared for our son back home. After the birth, once her boyfriend arrived to support Olivia, I returned home to rest and spend time with my son. During this time, I received several calls from Harper, but I was too exhausted to engage and chose to focus on my family. Later that evening, my husband returned from visiting Olivia and shared surprising news, which initially I thought was just about meeting his niece. However, he revealed that Olivia, fed up with Harper's toxic behavior, had decided to enforce a no-contact rule between Harper and her new daughter. He explained that when Harper had tried to visit the hospital unannounced, Olivia instructed the nurses to deny her entry, allowing only William to meet the baby. This was to avoid Harper's harsh judgments impacting her daughter. This bold move by Olivia was unexpected, and it underscored a significant turning point in how she dealt with Harper's overbearing nature. It became clear that Harper's incessant calls to me that day were likely attempts to either place blame or seek my help in persuading Olivia to allow her to see her granddaughter. Later, when I spoke with Olivia, she shared that her decision was influenced by witnessing how Harper had treated me over the years. Establishing a no-contact rule was a crucial step in protecting her daughter from the same toxic influence I had endured. This was a significant moment for Harper. As the repercussions of her actions were now fully realized, she was completely shut out from witnessing the early days of her granddaughter's life. Since then, I've contemplated whether we should also cut ties with Harper permanently. The thought of excluding her entirely feels harsh, but necessary for our mental peace. There's no assurance that her behavior won't extend to our son, causing similar distress. This has been a challenging realization for us, especially for my husband, who was raised in this environment and didn't recognize its toxicity until it began affecting me directly. My husband has been incredibly supportive and protective throughout this ordeal. After discussing with my husband and considering all that has transpired, we agreed that for our family's well-being, maintaining a distance from Harper might be the healthiest choice. This decision hasn't been easy, but it's one that many have supported, and it reinforces our commitment to safeguarding our family's peace and happiness. Given the overwhelming difficulties posed by my mother-in-law's behavior, my husband and I decided it was time to set clear boundaries. We arranged a group video call with his sister and William to discuss our plan. They supported our decision, understanding the need for peace in our lives. Now, all that was left was to inform Harper of our resolution. My husband called his mother yesterday evening to break the news. As soon as she answered, she began berating him for the lack of recent communication and demanded an immediate meeting with our son. My husband patiently waited for her to finish her tirade before he gently but firmly explained that it was time for him to step up as the protector of our family. Surprisingly, Harper agreed, thinking this was the assertion of authority she had long wanted from him. However, her agreement turned to shock when he revealed that his way of protecting us involved cutting her off permanently to shield us from her toxic influence and endless drama. Initially, Harper was stunned, possibly struggling to grasp the gravity of his words. When the reality of our decision hit her, she became desperate, threatening to come over and insisting that nothing could prevent her from seeing her grandson. My husband sternly warned her that any attempt to show up uninvited would lead to us calling the police for trespassing. Harper then accused me of orchestrating this division, claiming I was tearing the family apart. My husband countered her accusations, emphasizing that the decision was his and reminding her that Olivia had also chosen to distance herself for similar reasons. The problem, he pointed out, was clearly with her behavior. Harper continued her tirade, accusing me of brainwashing her family and alienating her children. My husband, growing increasingly frustrated, finally told her that if she was looking for someone to blame, she should reflect on her own actions. Her bitterness and discriminatory attitudes had pushed everyone away. He concluded that everyone was fed up with her negativity and toxicity, which prompted him to block her number, effectively cutting off all communication. This step was not taken lightly, but it was necessary for the well-being of our family, marking a new chapter where we could hopefully find some peace without her disruptive influence. After the decisive conversation between my husband and his mother, I took similar steps by blocking her number. I also informed my family about the situation and advised them not to engage with Harper for the time being. It's a difficult reality for my husband and Olivia, not having the support of their mother. But on the flip side, I'm relieved that we no longer have to endure such distressing scenarios. It's been 3 months since my last life, and I'm pleased to share that our son is thriving. Olivia and I continue to grow closer, and our children enjoy regular playdates. It's heartwarming to see their bond develop, and I cherish the thought of them growing up as best friends. In more joyful news, Olivia is preparing to marry the father of her child, which we all anticipated with great excitement. On to the main news, our stance of no contact with Harper remains unchanged. For those concerned about our safety, we've taken precautions by installing security cameras and changing our locks, ensuring that Harper cannot intrude upon our peace. Given the widespread knowledge of the reasons behind our estrangement, it's unlikely that she would risk a public confrontation, likely feeling the weight of communal scrutiny. Despite our firm boundaries, Harper attempted to use William as a conduit to reconnect, urging him to mediate a reconciliation. However, even William has reached his limit, expressing his own frustrations with her behavior. When he conveyed his feelings, it seemed to spark some introspection on her part. A few weeks after their discussion, Harper expressed to William a desire to apologize for her actions toward me. While it's hard to gauge the sincerity of her remorse, we've chosen to maintain our distance, continuing our lives without her involvement. William and other supportive family members regularly visit and bond with our grandchild, ensuring a loving and stable environment for his upbringing. This setup, free from unnecessary drama, is how we plan to keep things moving forward.